I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. It's been 14 days of protest, and Egypt's unrest begins to cause Christian uncertainty. Shin Yen Kwai La, Happy New Year in the year of the rabbit.
Shin Yen Kwai La.
And it's not weird science, it's family science night at Immaculate Conception School.
The most important subject is faith and religion, but that doesn't preclude or exclude science.
Good evening, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's been 2 weeks since the start of Egypt's popular uprising. Egyptians of every stripe and every faith have joined forces and their voices in a widespread call for embattled President Hosni Mubarak to step down. The world has taken notice as well, including Pope Benedict. During this Sunday's Angelus, the Pope joined an international chorus of leaders who are calling for peace in the midst of the country's upheaval.
I have been following the delicate situation in the dear Egyptian nation with attention in these days. I ask God that that land, which has been blessed by the presence of the Holy Family, once again find tranquility and peaceful coexistence in shared commitment to the common good.
But can the dream of a return to peaceful coexistence become reality? Well, over the weekend, reports of a bombing at an empty Coptic church in northern Egypt and news alleging the massacre of 2 Christian Coptic families by Islamist groups during Egypt's internet blackout have been circulating. So would the ouster of Hosni Mubarak and a regime change that might see the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood be a good thing or a bad thing for the nation's Christian minority? It's a question that many people are trying to answer, and it's one of the questions I'm about to ask Michael Lasavita. He's the Vice President of Communication for CNEWA. That's the Catholic Near East Welfare Association. Michael, thanks for joining us here on Currents.
Sure. Thank you, Matt.
Well, first of all, what is the situation for Christians in Egypt at the current time?
Well, it's basically a wait-and-see period, as none of us here really know what is going on with who's leading these demonstrations, although it seems as if they're sort of dissipating, at least the demonstrators from their streets. But the actual leadership is meeting with the newly appointed vice president to discuss a post-Mubarak Egypt. The situation of the Christians, of course, is, well, wait and see, as I said earlier. They're unsure about what the future holds. Under Mubarak, they were protected, but certainly discriminated against. They were basically second-class citizens, but nevertheless there was some degree of prosperity, some degree of security, despite bombings of churches and as recently as this past weekend. But they're not quite sure what kind of government will take shape and what the situation is.
Right. Now, of course, there have been calls for, and the protesters there want Mubarak to step down immediately. I mean, he's already said he's not going to run for re-election. A large number of government officials in the ruling party have already stepped down. What would be the situation if Mubarak were to step down immediately? How would that have an effect, or what would the effect be on the Christian population, but the entire population as well?
Well, this is my personal view, but I think that certainly President Obama and others in the other leaders in Europe feel the same way. But that is we'd have a major power vacuum if Mubarak was to step down. You would have sheer chaos and anarchy, not unlike what happened in Iraq with Saddam Hussein. The Middle East is basically countries there are run by strongmen historically, and those strong men are able to hold the very different populations that exist in their countries. The Middle East is not as monolithic as we think it is here in the United States. And what happens when there's chaos and anarchy, typically the vulnerable people, those who are marginalized, whatever their state may be, or religion, those on the fringes or those who are minorities are impacted because they have no one to protect them. And so I would think it would be a very, very dangerous situation for Christians. It already is dangerous, or maybe tenuous. It would be even more so if Mubarak was to step down and there were chaos in the streets.
We've heard a lot about the Muslim Brotherhood throughout the discussion of the situation in Egypt. What exactly is the Muslim Brotherhood as an entity? Is it, you've heard it painted everything from an extremist group to sort of a centrist group. Where do they actually fit in?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. Everybody uses different vocabulary, and people of various ideologies have their own points of view. The Muslim Brotherhood is a group that advocates and has advocated an Islamic state in Egypt, in fact for the entire region, but specifically Egypt, for decades. They are the original Islamic religious political group, not unlike Hamas in Palestine, who now, of course, control Gaza. Are they the ones who are the architects behind this? I don't think so. Most observers believe, who are on the scene and here in the West, believe that the Brotherhood was taken off guard as much as any other so-called opposition party or group. And there are a variety of opposition parties and groups in Egypt, which would include the Muslim Brotherhood. They're basically lawyers, religious lawyers, because there is no such thing as a cleric in Islam. Your religious leaders are actually legal. They're lawyers who study the law as it's outlined in the Quran and its interpretation.
Now, what is a scenario? Just one more quick question here before we have to wrap up. What is the scenario? Is there a scenario that you can see playing out that would ensure peace for the Christian minority in Egypt from here?
From here?
Well, from this point in where things stand right now.
Well, what's interesting is that it seems as if the work of the vice president and working with all of the different parties, the legitimate opposition parties, and that has to include the Brotherhood. They are an important part, from my perspective, an important part of Egypt, and you can't ignore them. Although we may not like them, they exist. But so do other parties, whether they're secular or ideological, politically. He seems to be doing the right things in order to advocate and assure some peaceful transfer of power. There'll have to be something. In the meantime, of course, Christians can't and won't stick out their necks, although there is a Christian opposition leader. But as the Coptic Patriarch or Pope both say, this is a gentleman who's not representing the interests of the entire Christian community, who make up about 10% of Egypt's population of 81 million people, but he represents himself and the interests of his party. Christians they have a disproportionate amount of influence there. They're wealthy, many of them. They're also impoverished in some areas, but the urban Christian community is reasonably well off. They have educational institutions and hospitals and things of that nature, and therefore have a disproportionate influence and are resented by some factions of the population. The only thing that's going to guarantee their safety, of course, is a strong democratic-style government, or what they presently have. I'm not sure that Egypt's population is ready for something as sophisticated as what we have here in Egypt, and I think we need to learn, we need to watch what's playing out in Iraq to give us an idea of what could happen in the entire region if, God forbid, there was a vacuum of power.
All right. Well, Michael LaCivita from CNEWA, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate your insight, and hope to talk to you again about this very, very important situation.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Thanks. And stay tuned. There's much more currents coming up. Is school choice unfair? We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, science and religion go hand in hand at one Queens school. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. The leader of Pakistan's Catholic bishop says he is outraged at the government's decision not to change the controversial blasphemy law. Archbishop Lawrence Saldana told the website ucanews.com that the government caved in, and there seems to be no prospect of changes in the controversial legislation in the near future. Pakistan's blasphemy laws make insulting the Prophet Muhammad a crime punishable by death. The country's prime minister recently disbanded the committee looking into making changes to the law after the murder of a government leader who supported change. In this country, Muslim groups are comparing upcoming hearings by New York Congressman Peter King to hearings held by Joe McCarthy in the 1950s. King is planning hearings on, quote, the radicalization of the American Muslim community. An interfaith coalition led by Muslim groups issued a statement last week saying the hearings are inconsistent with the founders' vision of America. The statement said singling out a group of Americans for government scrutiny based on their faith is divisive and wrong. King said he was too busy to respond to the group's criticisms because he was preparing for the hearings. Well, meantime, the new imam for the proposed Islamic Community Center near Ground Zero called it quits late last week. Sheikh Abdallah Adami had been on the job for just a few weeks, but said Friday he would no longer serve as religious advisor for the Park 51 project. Adami was called in to replace Imam Faisal Abdul Rauf, who had been the public face of the much criticized project. Adami said he was quitting to concentrate on writing a book. In Florida, police say a Muslim man was stabbed over the weekend because of his faith. Investigators say the stabbing happened in St. Petersburg after the alleged victim told 52-year-old Bradley Strutt that he was a Muslim during a discussion on Saturday. They say Strutt grabbed the Muslim man by the shirt and then stabbed him with a pocket knife. Now, details about the man's condition are not known, but police charged Strutt with aggravated battery. He was released on $15,000 bond Saturday night. Meantime, in Ohio, Catholic bishops there calling for their state to do away with the death penalty. The group of 10 bishops is echoing a call made just a few weeks ago by Ohio Supreme Court Justice Paul Pfeiffer, who was one of the original authors of death penalty legislation in that state, but he now says it's being used in cases for which it was not intended. In a statement, the state's bishops said capital punishment is wrong and that just punishment can occur without resorting to the death penalty. Well, House Speaker John Boehner recently backed legislation to revive a school voucher program for Washington, D.C. That's a move that proponents say would be beneficial to Catholic schools and give parents more choices in their children's education. Well, a similar debate is now underway in Indiana, as evidenced by lively discussion as a town hall meeting got underway last week. Reporter Drew Gardner has the details.
But we're really here to hear what's on your mind.
And what's on their mind is education. The main focus is legislation that would give parents the right to choose where they send their kids to school. That means money that would be used to fund a student's public school education could follow them to a private school.
So giving the opportunity to them to choose a private school, whether it be a non-public school, whether it be a charter school, whatever else, I think is a critical thing for our community.
Others disagree.
Church and state. That is a firm line that should never be crossed. There is choice already on schools.
Bosma agrees, but says the state has already been successfully doing this for years at a different level.
We do this at the higher ed level today. We give grants to students. They can take that grant, that public funds grant, to Notre Dame. They can take it to Purdue. They can take it to Taylor. They can take it to the University of Southern Indiana, wherever they want to go.
Several opponents say the state needs to refocus its attention back on public schools as a whole.
Public school should be your focus as legislators to make it second to none, and people would not be wanting to make a choice.
Bosma agrees, but turned to the audience for the answer.
The question is how to do that. And there are some places where it's working extremely well, and there are places that it's not working.
The one thing that most everyone agreed on is that the Evansville area has always had a very good relationship between public and private schools. They hope as this legislation develops, Southern Indiana can be a model to the rest of the state.
That report from Drew Gardner in Evansville, Indiana. Well, learning is a top priority at the Vatican as the Congregation for Catholic Education holds meetings this week. Pope Benedict told those in attendance that the internet, when used properly, can be a valuable tool for Catholic education and should be used in seminaries and other institutions. The pontiff said Vatican officials are working on a document on that very topic, but he did not say when it would be released. The Congregation for Catholic Education meets through Wednesday in Rome. Well, back here at home, the record-breaking winter weather has wreaked havoc on New York City's blood supply. Local churches are among organizations trying to help turn the blood supply shortage into a surplus. Our cameras were at St. Andrew Avellino Church in Flushing, Queens over the weekend. as parishioners rolled up their sleeves to give the gift of life.
Here we are at St. Andrew Avellino Parish, and it's obvious that we're having a blood drive, but because of the storms that we've had over these past few weeks, the blood supply is very low. So we've made an extra effort here at St. Andrew Avellino to encourage the parishioners. This is one of many places in the diocese throughout the year that a blood drive takes place. Gives parishioners an opportunity to share of themselves, literally, so that others may live.
Because of the storms we've had, we are in a blood appeal, as a matter of fact. We're in a blood emergency. We're sending out emails, we're on radio stations, you name it, just to try to get people to come out and donate blood.
They know there's a need for it, and they're out, and particularly this is a church location, and after Mass, it probably makes them feel better to know they did something good.
There's always a constant need for blood, I mean, when there's bad weather, it gets even worse, so, I think people should just pay attention. It's a real easy thing to do. And as a guy who's got 4 or 5 tattoos now, I have no problem with needles, so, it doesn't bother me in the least.
There's nothing to it, really. It really doesn't hurt, actually. I've had worse pain.
Really, it's crucial to give blood. It's not that bad, It's a little needle stick. As long as you're feeling well and healthy, 100%, you're eligible to donate blood.
And finally, the controversial Christian-themed commercial rejected by Fox Sports actually did wind up on the air during the Super Bowl. The Look Up 316 ad from the Fixed Point Foundation found its way to millions of homes through local Fox affiliates during the big game. The foundation's executive director tweeted over the weekend that the spot would air in Washington, D.C. and in other markets. The ad encouraged viewers to go to lookup316.com, that is, to discover the meaning behind the passage of Scripture, John 3:16. Reports say web traffic on the site spiked dramatically during the game. And of course, in keeping with the tradition of friendly Super Bowl wagers between Catholic bishops, Catholic Charities of Green Bay should expect a donation soon. The bishops of Pittsburgh and Green Bay agreed that the bishop from the losing city would make a donation to Catholic Charities in the winning diocese. Now, the bishops also wagered a variety of local foods to be donated to a food pantry in the winning diocese as well. Of course, the Packers beat the Steelers on Sunday, 31-25. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up. When we return, New Year's gets a repeat celebration in Flushing, Queens. Welcome back, and Xinyan Kui La. Okay, I apologize if I completely butchered that. And in case you're wondering what that means, I hope, well, you probably don't speak Mandarin, but, don't get down on yourself because I really had no idea what it meant before today either. Anywho, Happy New Year. Happy Chinese New Year, that is. The Year of the Rabbit got underway this past week. In fact, if you were anywhere near Flushing, Queens, you might have heard the sounds of celebration, and you might have wondered what in the world is going on. Hey, now you know. And among those celebrating were many Catholics from our own diocese. Yeah, the Chinese apostolate here in Brooklyn rang in the new year with traditional activities and a Mass this Sunday, and Currents was there.
Today is a very special day for us at St. John Vianney Church. We are celebrating the Chinese New Year, one of the most important events for the Chinese people, worshiping God and honoring the ancestors.
It's very good for people who got homesick like me. It's like you can go to the church where people speak the same language as you do, and people who have the same background, the same culture as you have. Today, I am very happy that we see our youth music, the dance, very wonderful.
My dad comes from Shanghai, my mom's coming from Taiwan, and they met here. I find that the youth group is very fun. You have like different activities every once in a while, And for Chinese New Year, they had the dragon. I thought it'd be fun to do the head, so I did the head.
In the Mass, when I look around, they all start praying faithfully. That really inspired me. Chinese New Year is a great time to bring all Chinese people together and let them get to know Jesus.
So there are many Mandarin-speaking people, most of them, and we have the Cantonese-speaking people here too. 恭喜發財. 恭喜發財 is Cantonese. They wish New Year, good luck, prosperity, and good health. But for the Mandarin-speaking, they usually say 新年快樂.
新年快乐. Yeah, 新年 means New Year. 新 means new. 年 yeah, 新年快乐.
七个隆咚锵咚锵，三节去拜年。七个隆咚锵咚锵，炮竹响连天。
The year of rabbit represents gentle. It's like telling us that we should be like a rabbit. I mean, we are gentle. We cannot do anything by ourselves. We should always rely on God.
In our Catholic tradition, the Beatitudes, blessed are those who are meek, and we practice the spirit of the gospel in this new year, the year of rabbit.
Father Antonius has taught me how to say this in Chinese, so I extend to everybody best wishes for a happy new year. 新年快乐 to everybody.
100%.
I love it. 新年快乐. Maybe I'll just stick with Happy New Year from now on. I don't know. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents coming your way. Coming up, science takes center stage at a local Queens school.
I love science, actually. It's my second favorite subject, and my favorite part is the experiment.
Finally tonight, science versus religion. The two have had an uneasy relationship in years past, but one school in Astoria grabbed the proverbial bull by its horns as they wrapped up Catholic Schools Week on Saturday night. We conclude our coverage of Catholic Schools Week with Immaculate Conception School's Family Science Night, submitted for your approval, of course.
This is our fourth annual Family Science Night, and it's an opportunity for our students to showcase their abilities in science. We've put it at the end of Catholic Schools Week so that people who want to come and learn more about Immaculate Conception School here in Astoria can see that our students are actively engaged in hands-on science. So this is one aspect of our curriculum, and we think we do a really good job.
I'm Dimitri. I'm in 7th grade. I go to here at MAC. This is a fish dissection. We're dissecting a sea bass. Now he's going to try to take out the pupil. It's inside the eye, and it helps the fish see.
Children came up with ideas to do different events. We have aviation, we have slime and a balloon trick. There's different tricks. They're dissecting a fish. They're doing fossils. They're making fossils. That's a good one. And I think Miss Ianello is making butter. So we're having a few different things.
Of course, our most important subject is faith and religion, but that doesn't preclude or exclude science, because science is, we study what God has created. So it's a wonderful way of looking at science and the different things that science gives to us. Well, I think Catholic schools educate the whole child completely, because the child has a spiritual life also. Intellectual life, physical life, but also spiritual life. That's an area that public schools are not able to go, even private schools are not able to go. The spiritual development of the child, which we believe is the most important development of the child.
Some of the challenges that we face are a shift in population, a change in enrollment. The recession has had an impact on us as well. When it comes to a decision as to whether to pay your mortgage and your other bills and then to fund Catholic education, it's a tough decision for parents.
Catholic education is a well-rounded education. It nurtures the mind, it nurtures the body, and it nurtures the soul as well.
We do the best we can. We have scholarships and we do what we can to keep it going. So the state of Catholic education is excellent. I just wish it could be made available for more. When my father asked me why I chose to go to Fordham rather than Columbia, I said a huge difference. There's a cross on the wall at Fordham, and I think that makes all the difference in the world. When we realize that there's something more important than just being successful and making money, then I think you know why Catholic school education is so much better than any other kind.
I'm now a biomedical engineer. I do cancer research, and I came back to run the virtual frog dissection to show that science is fun.
It's really fun. We get to go see all of our friends doing all of our really cool things.
I love science, actually. It's my second favorite subject, and my favorite part is the experiments. This year I'm doing paper airplanes, but next year I won't because I want to try something new.
Redesign it.
That's pretty cool. I like it. And you know, in that report at the science fair there, you saw fish. They were dissecting the fish, though. Of course, you had pretzels. I saw pretzels there. I wonder what that was about. There was butter. There were crackers as well in the shots you saw, all taking part in the experiments. When I was in high school and was in chemistry class, we actually, as part of chemistry, made peanut brittle. Love peanut brittle. And we also made some ice cream as well. So I always love those science experiments you can eat when you're through with them. It's just good. I don't know about the fish, though. Removing the eyes? I don't know. Anyway, that's, of course, if better the fish not be looking at you when you're trying to eat it. I don't know. Anyway, that's it for tonight, thankfully. Tomorrow, we'll take you to a rally to save the centers. Pro-lifers are gathering in the Bronx for that, and we'll be there as well. In the meantime, though, you can check us out online. We're over at currentsny.net. You can also find us on Facebook. And as always, if you have an idea for a story, maybe you just want to drop us a line, you can email us. Our email address is dropusaline@currentsny.net. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.